And now, from the CFTK-TV studios, this is Open Connection with your host, Robert Pictou.
Welcome to Open Connection. I'm your host, Robert Pictou. Our show today comes to you from the unceded and traditional territory of the Pictou people. Most toy runs began in the 1970s, beginning in the United States and rapidly spreading worldwide. The first toy runs usually had a handful of riders with teddy bears strapped to their bikes. They delivered these to hospitals, children's homes, and other areas where children were in need. Let us return to the archive to bring you part 2 of a 1990 Christmas.
Every year, Skeena Broadcasters sets up the Skeena tree in each of its offices. Residents from each community come in and drop off gifts under the tree. Those presents are then collected and distributed by the Salvation Army to families and individuals of all ages in each community. From Prince Rupert, Tim Davidson profiles the Salvation Army and tells us how this year it got some much-needed financial relief.
A poinsettia, a crackling fire in the hearth, a Christmas tree decked out in the latest seasonal fashions, a plush, cuddly teddy bear. These are some of the traditional pictures of Christmas. But what's this? A Harley Davidson? Chrome pipes? Black leathers? And motorcycles with a gremlin for a masthead? Well, yes, this is a less traditional picture of Christmas, but a nonetheless very significant portion of the Salvation Army's Christmas fundraising.
Well, over the years in Prince Rupert, we certainly wouldn't be able to be as generous with our giving as we are with the help of the bikers.
In fact, the Prince Rupert Harley Riders, with the help of some of their friends, have been contributing to the Salvation Army's Christmas Fund for 9 years now. The riders held their fundraising drive on the first day of December and were unexpectedly greeted by a large dump of snow.
I'd say so,
This is the first year it's been snowed out quite like this, that's for sure.
But as you see, we got a lot of population.
Yeah, we got more bikes than we expected for a day like today. We see that snow come down last night. We weren't sure if we were going to do any riding at all.
And ride they did. Like the post office used to say, neither rain nor sleet nor snow.
Take it slow.
Not surprisingly, there were a few mishaps. But despite the elements and despite the poor road conditions, the bikers who came from as far afield as Ketchikan, Alaska for the ride reached their goal of picking up a bit of money, which was collected at a number of well-known Prince Rupert watering holes. For the members of the Rupert Harley Riders, there's a certain satisfaction of doing a good deed and dashing a few stereotypes along the way.
Every year we gather anywhere from 300 to 400 toys at our dance, and a fair amount of anywhere from $1,500 to $3,000 in cash donations, and they're all brought to the Salvation Army.
It's all basically because
for the kids.
Thanking them for putting up with all the noise and racket and all the yahooing that we do through the years, eh?
And not only do the Harley Riders raise a considerable amount of money for the Salvation Army, they are also responsible for gathering the lion's share of toys for the Sally Ann. The night of their ride through town, the bikers gathered together for a party to which the entry fee is 1 toy. And when the party's a sellout, a lot of toys are the end result. Piles and piles of toys for kids of all ages, as a matter of fact.
This is by far the biggest one thing. The Christmas tree at the radio station and the Christmas tree at Daily News bring in quite a few toys as well. But particularly the toy run brings in mostly the number of toys that we really need.
This year, the Prince Rupert Harley Riders raised a record amount for the Salvation Army. Over $3,000 was raised through the ride alone.
So it's over 3,000 there.
We popped 3. Oh yeah.
With about
Who knows? What needs to count that? Don't count that stuff.
no, you guys gonna stay around and count that out? No, okay.
Well, there's 8 of them.
Unless you're buying.
No, I'm not, no.
You do better than last year?
Oh yeah.
How much more than last year?
Well, last year you just had over 2,000.
Yeah.
And how much is
Well,
here?
that was
Over 3,000.
Oh, you guys.
No, you know why? Because the young guys took charge.
the biggest year yet.
They're close to $3,500.
Add to that over 600 toys gathered through the bikers' efforts, and you have a very successful fundraiser.
Open Connection will be right back after these messages. And now, from the CFTK-TV studios, this is Open Connection with your host, Robert Pictou.
Thank you for staying with us. Each year, the Prince Rupert Harley Riders Toy Run one-day event raises between $10,000 and $15,000. Over the past 40 years, the group rides have raised over $700,000 for the Salvation Army. Let us return to the archives to see how the 1990 event is progressing.
The toys raised by the bikers will go towards providing needy families in the Prince Rupert area some of the things most families take for granted, like Christmas gifts.
Most of them are low-income families. A lot of them are people who are welfare recipients, or some of them are on UI. We expect this year that we'll have a number, we don't know, maybe 20, 25 families, first-timers. We've had a number of calls already from people who are wondering about that, people who are affected by the slowdown. And of course, the shortened fish season this year, and people are finding it difficult getting their UI and so on. So there's that to take into consideration as well. But we want people to know that are out there that if they need our assistance, we're more than willing to help them.
With a goal of between $35,000 and $40,000 that the Salvation Army is aiming to raise during their Christmas campaign, it's obvious that the Prince Rupert Harley Riders are only a small portion of the fundraising equation. There are the traditional money raisers like the Salvation Army kettles, which are set up in almost every town and are synonymous with the work of the Army. There are other contributors as well, including school groups, which bring in canned goods as well as money. The media is also involved in collecting toys for the Christmas Fund and so on. In short, it becomes a community effort to help the less fortunate. Glenn Patey estimates the Christmas campaign will help out over 300 families in Prince Rupert, which will translate into over 2,000 people. And in these financially troubled times, the Salvation Army's Christmas campaign needs all the help it can get.
When times are hard, the ones that can give a little bit more. And even the ones that find it very difficult, they try and do a little bit themselves. It's amazing how difficult times will bring really the best out of all of us. And I know in 82, 83, when we went into a recession at that time, we thought we'd be pretty well under our targeted amount, but we did very, very well that year. So comparing, we don't think it'll be too bad.
For the families benefiting from the Salvation Army's efforts, they can expect a Christmas food hamper consisting of the traditional turkey and food staples consisting of over $100 in goods. Captain Patey says the Christmas Fund has come a long way from its humble beginnings.
Internationally, this idea started out many years ago with the founder of the Salvation Army, William Booth, who in those days in England, back in the mid-1800s, he was concerned that many families were going without for Christmas. So one Christmas Eve, some 300 Salvationists got together and made up a whole number of Christmas puddings and distributed in Mile End Waste and that part of London at that time, the East End of London, and that's where the whole thing started back then. Of course, it's much bigger than just a Christmas pudding today, but people are certainly able to use it.
Aside from the more practical aspects of the Christmas appeal, the Salvation Army has a more conventional side. For what would Christmas be without music and carols? It's a Tuesday evening, and when Captain Pictou and members of the Salvation Army aren't working with the Christmas Fund, you may find them out caroling with people who get left behind in the Christmas rush. Tonight, it's the Acropolis Manor, and Captain Pictou is tickling the ivories of his accordion and entertaining the residents of the manor. It's these people who have witnessed a number of Christmases past that get forgotten, and the Salvation Army gives them something that money cannot buy: the warmth of fellowship and song. The spirit of giving is an important part of Christmas, and that giving can be found everywhere, from motorcyclists riding to raise money, toy drives by community groups, or just the giving of time to people who otherwise may not have as merry a Christmas.
Everybody gets involved. We get, every year, people will show up at the door and say, I'm from this group or that group, or from this association, or the group at the bank or the group at the company decided to, rather than buy gifts for each other this year, we'd donate to the Christmas Hamper Fund and so on. So there's people from everywhere that just come in, and it's great to see.
Open Connection will be right back after these messages. And now, from the CFTK-TV studios, this is Open Connection with your host, Robert Pictou.
Welcome back to Open Connection. When it comes to giving back to the community, any action, big or small, can make a real difference. Whether you're volunteering at your local food bank or donating money to someone in need, you can always have a positive impact on your community. Let us return to the archives with the Kitimat Community Help Agency.
If there's one constant theme in the history of the Help Agency, it's this.
Kitimat always comes through.
Last year it raised the largest amount in its history, $11,700, and it hopes to match or exceed that this year. Its big Christmas project is delivering hampers to needy families in Kitimat and Kitimat Village.
We filled over 200 last year, and we're expecting probably at least that many again this year.
And this doesn't just help people in Kitimat, it also helps any residents of Kitimat Village who are in need as well.
That's right.
It's non-profit, run entirely by volunteers, and that means about 99% of the money raised goes directly back into the community.
It's strictly volunteers. I would say 99% or more than 99% of what we bring in goes back into the community.
So 200 hampers, and they all have to be specially packed. It's an enormous operation over at the Anglican Church that you undertake every year.
Yes, it is, and we have volunteer ladies who help us every year to pack. Some of them come in and wrap and label gifts for us, and without them we just couldn't manage.
So as well as the hampers, there are gifts for the children as well, aren't there?
We provide gifts for children 12 and under, and for the teenagers we provide theater tickets or swim tickets.
And the hampers provide a good Christmas for many families and individuals.
We put in a meat voucher, we put in fruit, nuts, candies, canned goods, all the food that we collect for Christmas.
And the schools help in this,
don't they? The schools help a tremendous amount. This is where we get the bulk of our canned and non-perishable food stuff, are the schools and the churches.
The group was started by a former fire chief, and several people have been involved for a very long time.
We're just a small group, but we have a lot of other people who help us when the need is there.
And what happens in the rest of the year? How does the Help Agency share and give then?
Basically with a distribution of food. We get phone calls from social services or church ministers or some individuals when they know somebody in need, and then we fill the need. We do not give out money. We will give food vouchers, or Mrs. Gordon often does the shopping herself and the food is picked up.
It's a real commitment.
Yes, it is. And without Fred and Molly Gordon, we just couldn't do it because they put in the bulk of the work throughout the whole year.
Names are referred to community help from social service agencies, the churches, other volunteer organizations, and from individuals. Delivery of the hampers takes place just before the big day, and like everything else it does, it's volunteers from the fire department and groups like the Sea Cadets who make sure the hampers get to the right people in time for Christmas. Luella Froese has a story that still brings tears to her eyes.
Yes, this happened a few years ago. I had been to the post office and picked up the mail. I had been to TK and picked up money that they had collected for us. Then I went and did my grocery shopping. When I came out, it was a snowy, blustery day, tossed my groceries in the car in a hurry, and was partway up the hill to go home when I realized I didn't have my purse. So I madly dashed back and ran into overweighting. Nobody had turned it in, so I followed my footsteps back and couldn't find it. So needless to say, I was upset. I didn't even know how much money was in there. I just knew I had money that wasn't mine in my purse. When I got home, my son came running out and said to me, the police have called. So I called them back, and somebody had turned my purse in. They hadn't even looked in it, and there was over $400 in there that belonged to the agency.
So your heart must have just about stopped.
Oh, did it ever.
And from all the hard-working volunteers at Community Help,
Happy Christmas to all your audience sitting out there.
Open Connection will be right back after these messages. And now, from the CFTK-TV studios, this is Open Connection with your host, Robert Pictou.
In 1973, a variety of meetings were held in Smithers, focusing on the needs of children and adolescents in the Bulkley Valley. The meetings concluded with an agreement to develop a community-based organization which could coordinate services for children and youth, as well as involve members of the community in such services. In this final segment of Open Connection, we return to the archives with Nancy DeVries.
This was the scene at the Smithers Community Services office a couple of weeks ago. Food and toys piled high as part of the Community Christmas Hamper Program. Executive Director Nancy DeVries says Community Services is really just the umbrella under which the food and gift hampers are collected, that the ideas and support for collection comes from the community itself.
And there was a church group that got together, and instead of going out and canvass for Halloween, they collected food for the food hampers. And I know that schools in the area are doing challenges between the grades to see which grade can collect the most food and non-perishable food, and they bring that up.
There's, I guess, within the community, too, you get sort of different ideas each year. For example, the thing that stuck in my mind has been the event at the theater where the admission to a certain show was food for the food hampers.
Mm-hmm. And that was done through the people that owned the theater. It was their idea to do that. It wasn't our idea. We kind of heard about it almost after the fact. And it was a wonderful response. It was much, much more than what they thought, and certainly much more than what we thought. But those are the ideas that the people in the community come up with.
And then they just tell you, we've got this, and here you go, folks.
Yeah. Even the donations from the church on this Halloween event, it was dropped off here before we even know that people did it. We got phone calls saying, hey, you didn't come and pick up our food, and we didn't know what they were talking about. So it was, people in the community have done this and just gone out of their way to do it.
As the food and gifts make their way to the Community Services office, so do the applications for help at Christmas.
We leave our application forms that are in our office. They're left at the UIC office, and they're left at Social Services and Housing. And then we advertise through the paper, through the radio, stating all the time that they can pick up their hampers there, or their hamper applications there. And if they know of anyone else, like we've had people come through the door and say, we know this family really needs some help. And then they fill out an application form for them.
Christmas for most of us is a time of gift giving as well, so an effort is made to include gifts with the hampers.
The toy run was sponsored, I think it happened in September, early September or August, and they gave us all the toys that they collected on that toy run, and that was pretty marvelous. There was lots of toys that came in. And then we have the angel trees, which are, I think there's 5 or 6 posters out in the community, And the angel trees has a little tag on them which says a boy 4 years old or girl 6. Then people pick up these tags and they buy gifts and then they bring them back and they put that tag on them. But that response has been really good too, the response of gifts coming in for kids.
And how many children will you provide gifts for?
We usually figure it's 500. Every year there's 500 children. And we put the teens on as well, and single moms and single parents. And we try to make sure everybody has a gift. And for my girls.
To make a hamper program work, along with the generous contributions from the community, it takes some organization and some last-minute hard work.
We leave it go till the very last week, and then we set it all out as to boxes go all over this floor. Everything else gets shoved aside. And we put out the number of boxes for the number of hampers that we have. And to date, there's 132. So that number of boxes go on the floor. And we've divide all the food up into categories, and there are a few people who will volunteer and come in, and then we put that item in every box and make sure that everyone gets something of that item. Now there's the money donations gets used for certificate at one of the grocery stores, and they can buy meat or something that they need for their family, and that's just a small little donation. And then we also use the money to buy make sure everyone gets sugar and coffee and tea and margarine and bread and potatoes in their hamper so that everyone has that as well as the other items that are donated in.
So you can be pretty sure that people can at least have a basic, I guess, a basic meal at Christmas. All the little parts are covered.
That's right, yeah.
By the deadline for the hamper program, the number of recipients increased to about 140, and cash donations were on par with last year at just over $4,000. Donations to the hampers are taken in the spirit given, with no specific requests made. But DeVries says some specific items are needed.
I would tell them that we would like cranberries and tinned milk and juices and soup and pasta, if they were unsure of what to give for donation.
As with most projects that work to a deadline, there's a bit of a last-minute frenzy and frustration. But this program has its rewards, too.
We've had a little boy come in the door this year, and he gave us his donation of $6 that he had saved from his allowance. And last year, there was a fellow who came through the door, and he handed us a donation. And he said this year he and his wife were working, and last year we had given him a hamper, and he was willing to donate to us this year.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of Open Connection. The greatest distance in the existence of man is not from here to there, but the connection from his mind and heart. If we can conquer that distance, we can soar like an eagle and realize our immensity within. I'm Robert Pictou.